Welcome back to Analysis, where we've been discussing the charges of extremism in UK charities by the head of the Charities Commission over the weekend. Speaking in his first interview since becoming chair in 2012, he told the Sunday Times that Islamic extremism was the most deadly threat facing charities in England and Wales. In a Guardian readers' poll when he was appointed, 77% thought that William Shawcross was not a suitable figure to head the Charities Commission. We requested an interview with William Shawcross, but he declined to take part. In a statement to the Islam Channel, the Charities Commission said, in his interview, Shawcross made clear that threats to charities from extremists are not numerically the most serious problem we face. Unfortunately, we are unable to comment any further on the charities in question relating to Syria or any other action that may be taken, as they are under statutory inquiry. So, are the concerns that Shawcross raised valid? And what are the actions that the Charity Commission is likely to take in relation to this? Remaining with me in the studio to discuss this are Mohammed Amin from the Conservative Muslim Forum and Masood Shajara from Chairman of the Islamic Human Rights Commission. By Skype, we're joined by Dr. Julian Richards, Director of Security and Intelligence Research at Buckingham University. Mohammed, was this a concern that we should take seriously, or is there now, with Peter Clarke being sent in by Michael Gove to investigate Birmingham schools, William Shawcross, who's had to resign from the Henry Jackson Society to take this position, are we now seeing areas of education and charity work being sucked in to the debate about counter-terrorism when really that's not appropriate?
I don't know how much diversion is going on of misuse of charity money to support terrorism or extremism. I don't know because I'm not involved with the details of the Charity Commission. I don't believe that he would be talking about this if he wasn't genuinely and seriously concerned. And if it's happening, if charity money is being diverted, for example, to support Al-Qaeda or equivalent terrorist activities, that would be something quite serious.
Yeah, but I guess the question is that you don't know, he doesn't know, but this is the question that he asked. There are many questions that we don't know the answer to that they could investigate. They could have an internal investigation, for instance, in the Charities Commission, about why MPs thought that this body wasn't doing its job. He could have made his first statement about that. The point is he chooses to make it about this.
I suspect that there's something that's bothering him.
No, I don't
think that's in any doubt.
That is unfair, because the reality is that we are not questioning them investigating. We are not questioning them addressing that possibility. And if they really are concerned about that, then they should internally investigate it. We just heard earlier on that all these charities asking for more guidance. They should, for God's sake, give them more guidance. And this is the way to actually move forward. When he comes and makes his first speech and concentrate on this, he knows he's not stupid. He knows he creates whole perceptions which is going to affect and damage these charities and indeed criminalize charities which have been doing fantastic good job, especially since he hasn't got any evidence. Get the evidence, then come public. And the fact that he hasn't done that is actually shows he's not really fit for the purpose, and he's playing politics with this issue. And as you say, you don't know, nobody else knows. We don't know how much money of the government who gives to these groups is being diverted to extremists. There is a lot of question on that, but nobody comes out and starts sort of making a public statement, because to do so is going to be damaging the whole policy and the work. And actually, I'm really astonished that he should make such a statement at such a time with little evidence available and divert the attention over the charities into this area.
Dr. Richards, do you think, I know that this is your area of expertise, but at this rate, if we start turning counter-terrorism sort of frameworks of mind into the education system and into the Charities Commission, your department's going to be a hell of a lot bigger than it is at the moment, isn't it?
You mean in terms of things to study, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, of course, all of this is fertile ground for those of us studying security and counter-terrorism. But that's not my main concern. I think actually, the comments of both of the previous two speakers, there's value in both of those. Firstly, this hasn't come out of the blue. There have been cases in the past of terrorist organisations, not just Islamist terrorist organisations, but all sorts of terrorist organisations having money diverted to them from supposedly charitable organisations. So this is something that has been seen in the past. However, I also have sympathy with the view that looking at the press reporting of what Mr. Shawcross has said, there isn't any actual detail. You've said this is a potential threat, and he hasn't actually said, whether he's seen some actual cases of this. So we certainly would want to see that. But of course, in any conflict situation like Syria, there's always going to be potential risks that money that goes into the very confused situation. Some of it could be diverted for military purposes rather than humanitarian purposes.
But yeah, I guess one of the things I was getting at, though, is that do you think that there are dangers now? I mean, we found this with the Prevent strategy in its first incarnation under the last Labour government, that if we begin viewing whole areas of social life through the lens of security and counter-terrorism, we end up doing more damage than good.
Yeah, there are risks there, of course, and there are risks. Those of us like ourselves here at the unit that spend all day, every day thinking about security issues, that can tend to sort of inform our views or the lenses through which we see things. However, that to go to the other extreme and sweep a lot of these things under the carpet isn't right either. There are cases of serious issues of concern here that we need to try and confront.
Were you at all worried by Shawcross's appointment? I mean, he is a remark. I mean, your Prime Minister David Cameron described UKIP as nutcases and fruitcakes. The Henry Jackson Society is well to the right of UKIP.
Well, the Henry Jackson Society is also well to the right of me. But
it's well to the right of practically everybody. But I mean, that's
yeah.
I mean, after the Henry Jackson Society, you fall off the edge of the planet.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, should the head of the Charities Commission come from this stable?
We have a wide range of people in the public sector. The overwhelming majority of people in these quangos in the public sector actually primarily come from a Labour background, which is one of the areas of concern to me, because I think we need a better balance from all political backgrounds in the sort of government-linked quango sector. I don't have a problem with William Shawcross at all. The fact that he was involved with the Henry Jackson Society is neither here nor there. I expect him to do a good job at the Charity Commission.
All right. So, but 77% of Guardian readers, when they were polled at the time, thought there might be a problem with William Shawcross.
If you've taken a poll of Financial Times readers, you've probably got a different answer.
Well, let me put it this way. Let me extend the argument then, because Masood has referred to it. It's not just Shawcross's appointment. The board of the Charities Commission now contains Peter Clark, the man who was head of counter-terrorism, who is now appointed by Michael Gove to look into this very question in 25 Birmingham schools. There seems to be, as some people have suggested anyway, seems to be a neoconservative clean sweep in the Charities Commission. Masood?
And it goes beyond that. I mean, there are a number of people from the Board of Deputies of British Jews which its organization were involved in demonizing Muslim charities, including Interpol, and accused them of many things, and eventually had to give an apology. I'm really concerned that the Charity Commission now is being wooed and into an area which it shouldn't be. I mean, really, the Charity Commission is not there to do anti-terrorism work. Anti-terrorism work needs to be done. Anti-terrorism work is not going to be done by people giving press conferences and sort of making accusation without any investigation. This is not the way to move forward. Yes, investigations needs to be done on variety of things, but to make it political and make it public in the outset and create that sort of environment is not helpful at all. It's not going to resolve anything. It's going to create an environment that Muslims are going to further feel that the Charity Commission is being used against them, criminalizing them. identifying them as either terrorist or possible terrorist. And this is actually very damaging. And, when we talk about, this is a reality, we talk about how much money is raised for Syria in Britain by Muslim charities, is negligible. And when you look at how much the government spends and how much of that money is actually might be diverted into these extreme groups, then you're really talking about huge resources.
I mean, Dr. Richards, do you think that really it was unwise to make of Francis Maude to make an appointment at this controversial? I mean, Mohammed has made the point that there are some Labour supporting people, but I mean, this would be the equivalent as if somebody decided to make Che Guevara Chief of Staff.
I don't know if it's quite as controversial as that would be. And of course, I don't know Mr. Shawcross. I don't know his credentials. I would hope that there was a semi-rigorous process for appointing these people. But we'll have to see. And as we said earlier, he's made this statement. We don't actually know what the evidence is behind it. If evidence can be produced that stacks up, then so be it. But I wouldn't necessarily see this as a sort of grand conspiracy.
What do you think does? Which I mean, they're related at least in the time frame in which they've hit the press. Of Peter Clarke as the former head of counter-terrorism at Scotland Yard being appointed to look into schools from what began as one hoax letter complaining about one school in Birmingham.
Yeah, and again, that in a way, that's another whole can of worms in itself, that whole story about the radicalisation of schools. I mean, yes, it's all happening at the same time, but that could be as much coincidence as conspiracy. I mean, clearly, going back to the charity issue, there is great concern, and there are a lot of statements coming out about the threat from jihadists fighting in Syria and then coming back here. So I would see it as more linked to that particular line of story than necessarily the schools issue.
I mean, Masood, do you think there is I don't think anybody's suggesting that there's a conspiracy as such, but there is a political environment, a political atmosphere being created here, whether or not by simple sort of temporal juxtaposition. But I mean, this is also the week where we've had Tony Blair returning to the stump on the need for increased crusading activity against the Mohammedan hordes.
Yeah, and on the other side supporting the opposition in Syria. And look, the issue, I don't think there's a conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy, it's open book. I mean, you look at the government's policy on tackling extremism, it's very clearly there that the Charity Commission should be given new power and divert its work into something which wasn't until then. I mean, I'm not saying that anti-terrorism shouldn't be done, but Charity Commission is not a basis for that. There are other bodies who are actually very, rather than putting Peter Clarke there, actually make a department within the Metropolitan Police to look into this issue and help Charity Commission. Don't turn Charity Commission completely into anti-terrorism and social engineering. And this is very clearly in the policies that are being promoted, that to give them more powers to do this, to do that, and prevent in it. I actually think that it might be old-fashioned. I actually think Charity Commission should just make sure that things are run properly. They should have procedures. They should help the charities to achieve their goal. And indeed, if there are problems, deal with them. Currently, they're not able to do that. And you're giving a whole new lot of stuff to do based on, perceptions. And I actually think that's very dangerous.
I mean, Mohammed, surely from a kind of conservative, individualist point of view, we have now got a series of very powerful state institutions related to education, related to the charities. The police now, today, this morning, appealing to mothers in the Muslim community to intervene in the family. Surely somewhere in a good, stout-hearted, individualist conservative, the hairs must be standing up on the back of your neck and saying the state's getting overmighty here.
Well, let's get back first of all to Peter Clarke, because I think the comments that have been made about him are, to my mind, fundamentally misguided. Peter Clarke was a very senior policeman. I can't remember his exact grade. I think he was Deputy Assistant Commissioner. And yes, he was responsible for counter-terrorism, but you don't get to that kind of grade without an enormous range of skills in terms of leadership, people management, strategic vision, etc. No, let me finish. Those skills are very transferable to being a member of the Charity Commission or serving on any other kind of Quango board. And I think those... I'm very happy that he's there.
Why would being a policeman give you any knowledge
Not
whatsoever
just
of charity,
being
let
a-
alone of the education system?
Not just
He
being a
probably
policeman,
hasn't- he prob-
being a senior policeman. To rise in any organisation like the police or any other organisation, you need to be a highly skilled person. And he was a very senior policeman. He's therefore a very highly skilled person, has a wide range of talents. And I'm pleased that he's deploying them in the Charity Commission.
There are. I mean, we don't want to diminish whatever skills he might have in his particular
Well, that's what you keep doing.
area of expertise. I think what people are concerned with is the idea that these are transferable immediately and as a matter of policy, of judgment at the highest level, into either the oversight of charities or now into the school system. I mean, for all you know, and for all I know, for all anybody looking at his record knows, Peter Clarke hasn't walked through the doors of a school since he left as a schoolboy.
Well, let me take what you're saying and move it to a slightly different context. Look at Mohammed Amin. All he's ever done for 30 years is look at tax law and give tax advice. What competence does Mohammed Amin to have to serve on the council of a university like Salford University? That's exactly the equivalent of what you're saying about Peter Clarke.
It's a reasonable point. But Dr. Richards, do you think that you can just sort of pull somebody out of this environment and stick them in? I'm sorry, we seem to have lost Dr. Richards there. But Masood, there is a question of competence, isn't it? I mean, you know, somebody who's running the Great Hadron Collider may be very well technically qualified as an atomic physicist, but you aren't going to put them in charge of a social work department.
We cannot be naive to think that such an appointment will not have consequences in the communities and will not give that sort of signals, especially when it's done over and over and over, especially when it's connected to the main government policy of saying that they're going to use Charity Commission in that direction, and then they appoint this person. We should be really, very naive to think that, this is just accidental. He just expert in everything, and then he's persistently being used for other sort of purposes like the school and so forth. Everything to do with Muslim radicalization, Muslim terrorism, etc., etc. I think we should be really extremely naive to think that that is not going to have tremendous impact on the community. And I want to say something. Most of the Muslim viewers who are watching this, they know that already there is a fear within the Muslim community to make donations because they feel that if they make a donation with all the hullabaloo that is going on, they're going to find themselves in difficulty. Many people now are actually not making a donation through their bank account. They actually want to make cash donations. And this is really affecting the most vulnerable people on this earth. And actually, I think that, what we are doing, not only demonizing a section of community, British Muslim, but we're actually depriving the most vulnerable people in Syria and everywhere else from what they actually need on a pretense that, they might be someone doing something. Well, if it is, please investigate. MI5, MI6, Metropolitan Police have got all infrastructure to investigate, everything. They could pick up our phones and listen to it all around the world. Why can't they actually come up and stop this sort of thing happening rather than coming to the media, demonizing the whole sections of community and creating an environment where Muslims are feeling threatened, they're feeling criminalized.
I mean, that's the point, isn't it? That this is a sort of security apparatus which is now leaking into wholly inappropriate areas of social life.
I completely disagree. I don't feel threatened. Look, we talked before about Interpol, which has often been the subject of investigations. I'm proud to say categorically on my website that every year I give some money to Interpol. Not a lot, but I give it. And I make a point of saying that I give it because it's a charity that, despite the investigations, nobody's actually found anything wrong with it. And therefore, I'm perfectly happy to support it. It's entirely a state of mind. If you want to be paranoid, you can be paranoid. I'm not paranoid.
No, but it can't be simply a state of mind when you have a series of high-profile press announcements, all concerning the same subject matter. I mean, if this was all about corruption in the Football League, people would say, "Look, come on, there's something going on in the Football League," or at least they would say, "Look, come on, there is a series of very high-profile state bodies now looking at this where they weren't before."
There are things in life called coincidences. I mean, are you going to tell me that Tony Blair is sort of, in cahoots now with the government about making his speech? By the way, it was a terrible speech.
No, I think Masood, take up that point.
Look, really, I think someone should be extremely naive to say, once, twice, 3 times. But, we are getting on a weekly basis, and sometimes several times a week, we are getting statements from ministers, from the government, policies like, tackling extremism, which no one from the community was consulted, and they're all showing the same direction. For us at this point to turn around and say, this is not the direction we're going down, then we really need to be extremely naive, and I'm trying to be polite here. The reality is that this is damaging not just for the Muslim community, but it is damaging because it diverts us from real issues that we are all facing in Britain, over the economy, over social cohesion, everything else. And these actually are sort of policies that is actually diverting us and is damaging the whole society. And it shouldn't take place.
I'm afraid that's the point where we're going to have to leave it, because we've come to the end of this episode of Analysis. But I'd like to thank my guests here in the studio and people who joined us on Skype, and of course you at home for watching. Please tune in again for future discussions, and don't forget you can keep up with this discussion by following us on Twitter at the address below, or by following the Islam channel Current Affairs on Facebook. Until next time, good night.